We will try to explore how and when does ethics come into play and how important is it in defining a leadership style. Our first panelist today, representing Toastmasters International, veteran speaker and inspirational leader, DTM Kumaran Pethi. Please welcome to the stage. Our second panelist today, representing a corporation that is as old as Toastmasters International, a leader in its field, Toastmaster Geeta Prasanna, representing IBM. And a third panelist today, a champion in his own right, going to be champion soon, hopefully, Toastmaster T.K. Ramesh as the international speech champion. So the format of this event is that I'm going to bring about 3 different perspectives. The audience is free to ask questions. I will call for a time and you can reserve your questions till then. Please do not interrupt any of the speakers during their speech, during their presentation. If anybody has any questions or clarifications to ask for, there is a Q&A session for them. So are we all excited about ethics?
Yes.
All right, let's start. Let me start with you, Pethi. How important is ethics in leadership?
The very fundamental of India's business leadership stems from the fact that it's ethical. It stems from the fact it comes from a company which is 100 years old. It stems from the fact that the man who founded was J.R.D. Tata. If you understand, if you have a pension fund today, it's because of the Tatas. If you have a ESI today, it's because of the Tata. If you have a gratuity today, it was given to the world by the Tatas. Their value of ethics was the employee first and profits next. In fact, if you go into the book Creation of Wealth, which has been written on the how Tatas have gone about creating wealth for the nation, until 1970s, they were the largest contributor to the Indian economy in terms of giving a grant, until the government of India took over. If a few of you are from IIC and many of you are talking about MBAs, the foundation base was laid by the Tatas. If some of you flew in a plane to wherever you have to go, Tata set this ball rolling. They didn't do the Bangalore airport. It's because they believed in something called ethics, where you don't dole out money to make a return which is favorable. In spite of all this, a few companies took them over 10 years back and emerged to become the biggest leaders in the playing business field. Tatas have come back in royal style, and today they are world leaders. And they have been declared as the second most integral company in the world in terms of transparency. It speaks volumes of the way Tatas have led the leadership. And to them, ethics is something it's paramount and holds high value. In life too, I think if you're ethical, initially very difficult. Don't wear a helmet, have a booze or two, drive a car fast. The first thing you do is pay a cop. I doubt how many of us will prefer to go to jail or pay a fine. Ethics stems from there. If you're right, probably becoming leaders in your own right as time goes on may be a way of life.
Brilliant. I think that's well said. I think we all know what Tatas have given to this country. But let's talk more about how does ethics flow into Toastmasters? How do you've been a Toastmaster for long, and you're a DTM, which is the highest pedestal a Toastmaster can reach. So how has that journey been from an ethical point of view?
It's probably one of the most profound things I've done in my life. Learning to look at myself, questioning the way I approach people in life, work and integrity. I can be truthful without hurting others. I can tell my wife I'll be late and she knows why now. Before I would have all sort of lies to make it up, and she would anyway know the lie. It's not table topics, it's about being sincere in what I have to convey. And over a period of time, I also have changed to thought that I should not be jumping out for every cause and keep an excuse. That's that family life. Extreme amount of happiness stems from the fact that I've been truthful to myself first, then to the people around me. At work too, it's my favorite tagline, Toastmasters help me at work and life and business. At work too, I have learned to be kind, nice and right to my employees, where I see the volumes of productions are improving because of a nice word said. A nice word said as an evaluation, not being judgmental. A mistake happened, I have given them a leeway. Ethics, I think, as a father, stems from the fact that I answer all the phone calls that come to my house and do not say, "Tell him I'm not there," which many parents do, and the kids pick it from there. And I stand up for all my what I have to do. I tell sorry to my son if I'm not able to deliver on what I have done. It was not easy before. I would boss him over. No, I tell him sorry.
That's brilliant. I think that's
It stems from the fact that I have inculcated a few values which come from his organization.
I think that's a brilliant point. I think ethics is not only professional, it's also personal. I really like the point that you apologize to your son and tell him don't tell lies in front of him or give proper reasons to your wife. I think that's a very important point. So going from an organization, employees, DTM Kumaran talks about Tata's, he talks about employees. What is IBM's take on that? How have we ensured that our employees and employers, that is the managers and the workers, they are in an ethical relationship? What are the checks and balances in place?
So most of the people in this room are from IBM, and we know IBM is a value-based company. The fact that it has chosen the path of values itself says a lot about the organization. So we do know the three values of IBM on the basis of which all our interaction, be it with our fellow colleagues or our customers or the way we do business or our day-to-day activities is all based on ethics. So that itself says a lot about IBM. That said, my 9th year in IBM this year, and I've seen a lot of compliance issues. I've seen a lot of issues where managers are in a fix about, is this the right thing to do, or and you do, and IBM does give you the liberty to take your own decisions, right? So it's not like you don't have a choice and you have to follow rules. And we all know the kind of freedom that we're given in an organization like this. The very fact that we don't have an attendance tracking system, it just says a lot about the company, right? You just have access cards and you don't sign in a register to say this is the time that I'm logging in. And we have our clocking system in GBS and other businesses, etc. So it's a company that values the trust that it has in the employees and expects the same value and compliance back. So I'm just proud to be in an organization that gives you so much freedom and trusts you so much. And I'm yet to hear about an organization that allows you that much freedom and at the same time gives so much importance to compliance. And I've seen many managers, many top executives leave the company on ethical grounds. So while it gives you all the freedom, it's also very, very strict about following compliance and ethical issues. So that's the kind of organization.
That's a good perspective. I probably subscribe to it. It takes you a longer way. But to your Toastmaster Ramesh now, to win, and we are all in the business of winning at some stage, whether it's winning on the personal level, organization level, country level. We have London Olympics coming, and we have all these cases where athletes are caught doping, cheating. There's talk of gamesmanship in sports like tennis. What is your take as a contestant, as a champion? You are there to win, but how would you ensure that you are you're bounded by ethics, you're ethical in your approach?
Let me give a perspective to ethics. In a land of thieves, honest man is a criminal. Right? You can't be a honest man in a land of thieves. So ethics stems from the fact that what is the value system practiced in a particular environment. That's why we have a difficulty when you move from one entity, a company, to another company. You have a struggle to fit into that structure. It takes some time. If you have spent more time in a company, assume you have spent 8 years, 10 years in a company X, and you are moving to a new company, within the first 1 year, 1.5 years, if you are not able to adjust and understand what are the value systems practiced, you present yourself as an unethical guy and you get out of the system. And you will find a lot of people taking 2-3 changes before they settle down in a company where they can continue for a longer time again. So ethics is a slightly difficult thing to understand. That's why companies today clearly say these are the value systems followed by us. If you are a contestant, you have to have a value system which is governed by that particular sport or organization which you are working with. Having said that, while there is a value system which governs the environment, there is a value system which governs an individual. And what is that value system? Simple thing, if I am not congruent to myself, if I am not honest to my own self, then I am going to be presenting an incongruent persona to the audience. So as a contestant, I need to be well within the norms of congruency within myself. So when I give a speech in a contest, it should be congruent, it should come from my experience. I cannot fictiously create a character and say this is what I am. there will be a disconnect which will be seen by the audience. If I am not physically fit as a sportsman, I cannot get into drugs and enhancers and try to present myself as a more able guy than the other people who work hard towards acquiring that stamina, strength, or the capability to enter sports. So primarily it's a question of congruency to oneself and how congruent you are to your environment. These two defines. If you are not fitting in the environment, it's better to exit out of the environment. If you have a personal value system, no point staying in the same system and trying to fight the system without it. Unless or else you find what the system practice is not good for a larger people. As I said, I conclude, in a land of thieves, honest man is superior.
Brilliant. So we have three perspectives, three very unique perspectives. One on the personal and organizational level, how you fit into the environment. I think that's a very important point. For IBM's value-based system, because it helps them not become a schoolmaster to their children. And we also have a personal system where one man tries to be true to himself and tries to be as ethical as possible. He improves productivity of employees, helps business and personal self. Now at this point I want to ask the audience, do you have any questions on any of the three, I would say not different but diverse viewpoints presented by the panelists? What is your take on ethics? Do you agree with the panelists, or do you have a different point of view which you would like to bring in? Yes, sir.
I think from this is a personal opinion. I think ethics is a very subjective matter, and when it comes to an organizational level, it's always appalling me how organizations define boundaries, ethical boundaries. Because one of the simplest, and I would like to take an example is. I've seen most organizations saying that you cannot take your client out for a dinner when you know there's a direct business opportunity that you might get from him. But then I've always seen almost in every organization that as a part of relationship building exercise, even I think within IBM it does happen that you take your clients out for dinner, you chat over a drink and you talk about business. So I mean again I think ethics is a very subjective term. It's a place, it's a territory where defining boundaries is difficult. So, I mean, what is your take on organizations? I mean, how do organizations build ethical boundaries for the employees and for the processes that they have?
Asking who?
I think that's a question for Vita.
Yeah, let me try and answer that. So, while we say networking and building relationship with your employees or your clients are important, and at the same time we also say that you cannot do anything that will create a situation of advantage for you. I think it's important for you as a leader. We'll be talking in respect of leadership, and I believe every employee in IBM is a leader on their own. So as a leader, you have to be clear on at every step. You need to go back and check: are you doing the right thing? You're taking the client out for dinner, so you're building a rapport, you're building a relationship is fine. But are you discussing confidential information, or are you trying to influence his decision over the deal that you're making? Is something that's critical. And there is in any ethical or a compliance issue, I think there is a very thin line that differentiates compliance and non-compliance. So it's up to the leader to decide and think over at every step about what he's doing and whether it's ethical or not. So so the answer is to constantly remain aware of ethical issues and also be aware of what you're doing, whether you're crossing over or within your limits. And that's a decision that as a company and as a leader, one has to take for themselves. Right? There is no right or a wrong thing, but you need to be aware that you don't cross over. At the same time, be within the compliance limits as well.
So I mean, how I would like to interpret it like this. So while ethical boundaries can be defined by an organization at a broader level, as the panelists said, it boils down to you personally applying it.
That's right.
Even in business.
Yeah, I think that is coming out very clearly from all three panelists as well as the questions.
Let me
Yes.
give a perspective to you. Sometimes I go out for recruitment, right? I do campus. So many of the universities or the so-called coordinators, they'll say, we'll pay your fare, airfare, we will host you, we will take care of all these things, please come to campus. And generally what we say is, I don't mind coming to your campus, but the fare, the travel or the stay or everything is borne by my company. So that I don't have an obligation to you where I can compromise what is my objective. That is one. Second thing, when we go there, we definitely go out for a dinner because we spend 8 hours, 10 hours with the placement officers who are coming with us. Right? So having developed a rapport, we don't have much knowledge about the environment. They generally accompany us for a dinner. Right? where we can draw a line, from my experience, I leave it to individuals, is if you are going to compromise after 3 drinks, assume, right? Don't get into drinking at all, assume, right? So if that is the time you are going to forget what you are there for, or you may compromise, that is what you need to avoid. There is nothing wrong in going for dinner. At the end of the day, he is playing a role, you are playing a role. Right? And just below that, we are all human beings. We would like to have a nice relationship, networking, or people whom we know from a new environment. That is also a basic need for an individual. That being the case, we need to stop where we may tend to compromise. If that is your weakness area, stop there. Don't get into it. So that decides what is good. If you are weak to ice cream, don't go for ice cream.
I agree. I think we had a question from Soumya.
Yeah, this is to DTM Kumaran Pethi. Now that you have brought out the rapport between you and your son, ethics is not a skill which can be learned. It is something which has to be evolved. How would you go about nurturing this ethics? At what age is it best to talk about ethics to someone? And how will it be evident?
In my case, it's not learned, it is burnt.
I think in most cases it must be burned.
We learned the hard way. From where I come now, I'm touching 50s, and the learning came through the hard way. The learning came in 2 methods. One by watching. Other is by learning the hard way. Watching is, you can tell people in this room 100 times, don't do this. Do this. You can follow the practice, they will do it. I tell my children to fold the blankets, they never do. It's 16 years, I'm still folding the blanket. I hope one day they'll fold it. The point is, we have seen over a period of time, theory part of it is something which bounces over the head of every individual. Were you so capable enough that you would understand all that was taught in school? All of us are doing in Harvard. No, we hated what was taught there. Theory was something which ingrained into 1% of the people, and mostly because our parents asked us to. If it was a hands by practice method, it was very easy to go around it. And if you ask me age, to me it started when I was born. Because I watched what my father did, I watched what my mother did. They were my first heroes. And whatever they did was right to me. Like you said, if there was a thievery in the house, that is accepted. And I'll be wondering, why did the cop catch me? It's a way of life. Because that's what my parents did.
Right.
And as you move to a system like IBM, if there's some values which will ingrain from you can. The strength of a character would be to segregate between what is good and what is good. How many people in IBM have been sacked for taking a colleague or a partner to dinner? I don't know anybody. Because IBM also knows there's a line which you can transgress. Beyond that, they know when to take it. So there are flexibilities. It's like foolish and bravery. It's like heroism and suicide. You decide where you have to draw the line. But learning comes from the time you're born, learning times when you're burnt in the process and you emerge a better person.
Great.
Thank you.
We have one more question.
Yes, this is a question for Toastmaster Ramesh. You began by, if you could just repeat the quote that you had used.
In a land of thieves, honest man is a criminal.
Yes, so my question follows is, would you define ethics as being determined by the environment or determined by the individual?
Ethics, if you are looking, there are 2 things. One is the personal value system, other is the global value system. When you say ethics, the quote what I refer is for a social value system. Right? If you look at India today, there is a company which exists only for transparency, honesty. There is a company which exists which is only for the grandiose plans and the implementation they do. Both are successful. Both are successful in the environment. So this social system enables both the values. Right? But if I am working in a company X which is only looking at how do I implement a mega project, don't worry about how you achieve it, but you implement on time. I worked in that company for 25 years and I moved to a company where honesty and transparency is very important to me. I'll struggle in this system. So individual is one system, family is another system, the society where you live in is one more system. So we are surrounded by many systems which operates in our environment. What is going to make you comfortable at the end of the day? At the end of the day, I am an individual. I am going to be part of all these systems. I am the center of all these systems. How I am going to make myself comfortable in the system depends by how congruent I am to myself. That is going to define how I am interacting with the system. So we need to be aware of what is the value system I am operating in and what is my personal value system. If you look at tribal people, killing is not a, or what you call sacrificing is not a what you call wrong thing as per them, because they are doing it for common good in that. Will you accept the tribal values of sacrifice in a civilized society? No. But they have been existing for millions and billions of years. Even if you go to certain tribal areas, they still do the sacrifice. They have certain value systems designed for them, which is making them survive, which is making them go through their beliefs. So the value systems are different. If I am trying to impose my value system on somebody as a society or a group or an individual, then the conflict comes. So sometimes they may compromise and work as a single system. They may accept, oh, this value is okay for me, this value is okay for me. It happens when when a marriage happens between two different families, the two value systems merge there. They somehow agree. They may disagree on certain things, they may agree on certain things. So this value system comes from what I practice, what I believe in. It is not a written constitution that is common to everyone. That is why the ethics and moral or immoral conduct is a thin line.
Yes, I think we all agree. There's a very thin line. It's the person that defines it. I think we're almost out of time. So let me just sum up what we discussed so far. Toastmaster Ramesh, I think your perspective is brilliant. You talked about how you define the value system and how the value system affects you, is where you're coming from. If you're coming from a different value system where thievery is acceptable, then probably honesty is a crime for you. Very well said, and I agree with you, because what you are taught and what you're brought up as, what you've been told is correct, will always remain a fact. Like what we famously say, that one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. It depends on which side of the line you are. Toastmaster Geeta, you're an IBMer, you've been on IBM for 9 years. You brought in the IBM perspective. I agree with the value systems that we have. We have checks and balances, and we do go very strongly upon unethical people. But again, as one of the audience rightly pointed out, there is a thin line. There is a thin line which gets transgressed time to time, depends on how much of the transgression is acceptable. Once the transgression is too high, we come after it. And that is, I think, it's not only organizational, I think it's human as well. And to PTM Kumaran, you gave us the greatest example of personal ethics, which is your ethical style. You practice what you preach. You will go ahead, be ethical, and hope that your followers, your employees, your family will follow you. I think that is a very, very difficult thing to do, and you're very courageous to have chosen a very, very difficult path. Because often what we see is we find it difficult to practice what we preach. There are textbooks which say, oh, let me always speak the truth. I will always speak the truth. But it becomes very difficult, and some of the greatest people who have followed on this line have themselves felt that at times it is often not necessary to be so truthful about it. Even Mahatma Gandhi himself says it, that sometimes if you have to hurt somebody, if you're trying to hurt somebody by telling them the truth, you might soften the truth. But it's a very, very difficult path to follow, and I feel that all three perspectives brought in by our panelists are very, very important. I hope the audience found this discussion useful for your personal life, for your professional life, and for your family life. And at some level, it has ignited a spark in you that probably you want to relook at your value system, whether it's relevant in today's world or not. And hopefully, a slight change in attitude would probably go a long way in redefining your future. And as we all know, the journey that you take upon from then on would be your reward. So I thank you all for being a great audience. I want to thank the panelists for bringing so much insight into the discussion. Thank you.